Sir, good morning, sir. My name is Carlo Cabaluna Hamon, your student in Forensic 1, PS Cream 2, Black Sea. So, for today's video, we will talk about forensic photography and the history of forensic photography. So, what is forensic photography? Forensic Forensic photography deals with the study of notion of photographs and its application to the law enforcement and the preparation of photographs in the court presentation. So, forensic photography. Forensic, from the word forensic, it refers to a marketplace where people gathered for public discussion. So, ang forensic ay para siyang forum kung saan ang lahat ay nagtitipon para sa isang diskusyon. And photography is a reproduction of an image of an object by the action of light. And the word photography derives from the Greek word photosgrapen or photosgraphia. Photos means light and graphia or grapen means to draw. This word first by the scientist Sir John F.W. Herschel in 1839. Photography is a method of recording images by the action of light or related radiation on a sensitized material. Also, photography involves science and art. It involves art because of the talent and the skills, and also the science is involved because photograph involves in systematic method, step-by-step method, and photography is using a procedure. So, photography has the four elements, which is the light, sensitized material, camera and accessories, and the last one is the chemical process. So, the two components of light are natural light and artificial light. So, natural light. A natural light is made by nature. For example, sun, moonlight, starlight, at lahat ng light na nakikita natin na gawa by the nature. And the second component is the artificial light. So, artificial light is man-made. For example, lamps, bulbs, traffic lights, lahat ng light na gawa by man-made. So, the second component is the sensitized material. And the example of the sensitized material is the photo paper or film. And the third one is the camera and the accessories. Hindi mabubuo ang photography kung wala ang camera at ang accessories niya. And the last one is the chemical process. Para mabuo ang isang image, dapat may proseso. Like the film, kailangan pa lagyan ng chemical para makita ang isang object. The history of forensic photography. So, the history of forensic photography. The first man who discovered the dark chamber or the camera obscura was Alhazen. And the person who designed in 1700, the person who designed the camera obscura or the dark chamber was Leonardo da Vinci for accurate perspective and skills. In, in 1800s, Thomas Wedgwood and Humphrey Davy produced the photograms, and the three person who is achieved the two photography accomplished by three persons, which is Joseph Nicephore Niepce in 1816 and Louis Quahis Daguerre in 1839 and William Henry Fox Tablet. And Joseph Nicephore Niepce in 1816, he was able to obtain the images on paper and sensitized with silver chloride solution. But in Louis Daguerre in 1839, he produced the Daguerre type, the first practical photography process. Image was permanent by the use of hypo. And William Henry Fox Tablet in 1841 he patented the calotype process. Negatives on paper synthesized with silver iodide and silver nitrate. These were contract with the sensitized paper, acetone, and revolving power. Daguerreotype was better. Mas better pa daw ang daguerreotype kaysa sa calotype. So, in 1839, Sir John F. W. Herschel coined the word photography, while in 1861, James Clerk Maxwell researched on colors. So, the importance of forensic photography in the field of policing. So, forensic photography may refer to the visual documentation of different aspects that can be found in the crime scene. It may include the documentation of the crime scene or physical evidence that already found, or the physical evidence that is either found on the crime scene or already processed in the laboratory. Forensic photography differs from the variation of other photography because crime scene photographs usually have a very specific purpose of capturing an image. As a result of an investigation, in that with the absence of good documentation, investigator may find it impossible to conclude that what did happen or did not happen. So photographs and crime sketches are the most effective and simplest way to represent a crime scene by the investigating officer. They are the most useful in supplying significant bits and pieces with exact measurement of the site and evidence where the crime has occurred. So photography has always played a very important role in the policing. In fact, photographs have many different functions in policing. It acts as a tool to solve crimes when it came to be used as evidence against the criminal or the offender. It also helps to deter crime when it's used as public awareness medium. Photography in the field of criminal investigation. Photography is an essential tool for the law enforcement investigator as a tool. It enables him to record the visible in any cases, the invisible evidence of crime, especially techniques employing infrared, ultraviolet, and X-ray radiation. Enable him to record evidence which is not visible. The The photographic evidence can be ferret, record, remember, and recall criminal evidence as well as photography. Photographs are also means of communication. It is a language sometimes as defined the most universal of all languages. Photography has an advantage as language because it does not rely upon abstract symbols words. Photography thus is more direct and less subject to misunderstanding as a communication medium has few in any equal. So there are 9 functions of photography in investigative work. The first is the identification. So identification is, for example, identification of criminals, missing person, lost and stolen properties, and also the civilian. And the second one is the communication and microfilm files. The example of my communication and microfilm files is transmission of photos or wire or photos and the investigative report file. This is the example of communication and microfilm files. And the third one is the evidence. The example of evidence is recording and preserving an evidence. First one is the recording and preserving the crime scene, the vehicle accident, homicide or murder cases, or robbery cases. And the second one is discovering and providing. So the example of discovering and providing is by abstract content, by contrast content, by mummification, and invisible radiation. This is the example of evidence. And the fourth one is action of offenders. So the example of action of offenders is surveillance, burglary, confession, reenactment of a crime, reenactment of a crime. The fifth one is the court exhibit. Court exhibit, demonstration of enlargement, individual photos, projection slides. And the sixth one is the crime or fire prevention. The example of crime or fire prevention is security clearance. And the seventh one is public relation. The eighth one is police training, prepared training, films, traffic studies, documentaries and documentaries. And the last one is reproduction of copying of image, for example, photographs and the official record. Camera obscura or the dark chamber. Ang camera obscura at or sa tawag nilang dark chamber ay unang nadiskubre ni Alhazen. At dinisenyo naman ito ni Leonardo da Vinci sa 1700s. And si Thomas Wedgwood naman and Humphrey Davy, sila naman nag-produce ng photograms in 1800s. So si James Clerk Maxwell researched the colors in 1861. Si Edwin H. Land naman siya yung nag-introduce ng Polaroid or the one-step photography. So napakahalaga na mapag-aralan natin ang history ng forensic photography at ang forensic photography in the field of criminal investigation. Kasi ang forensic photography in the field of criminal investigation, sila yung ang forensic ay nag nag ano nag nag pre, nagpre-preserve ng mga ebidensya galing sa crime scene at nagre-representa ng mga ebidensya sa korte. So, for example, may patayang naganap sa isang lugar, So, kung may patayang naganap sa isang lugar. To preserve that evidence, kasi may mga ebidensya kasing naaagnas, for example, yung dead body. So dapat to preserve that body, dapat kukunan mo siya ng litrato para pag dating sa korte, buo pa rin yung yung dead body. So yan ang napakahalagang bagay ng forensic photography na kailangan nating mapag-aralan. Kasi ang forensic photography, also referred as a crime scene photography, an activity that records the initial appearance of the crime scene and physical evidence in order to provide a permanent record for the courts. Crime scene photography differs from another variation of photography because crime scene photographers usually have a very specific purpose of capturing each image. So, crime scene can be major sources of physical evidence that is used to associate or link suspects to scenes, victims to scenes, and suspect to victims. This is the Locard exchange principle. It is the basic tenet of why crime scene should be investigated. Anything found at the crime scene can be physical evidence. In the scientific crime scene investigation, the first activities that the crime scene are the essential for the successful preservation of the physical scene is to capture the evidence. So, the first responder and ultimately the crime scene investigator have the obligation to make the scene secure and ensure that any further activities at the scene do not change the evidence. The use of multi-level security method would accomplish this task. The primary scene survey is the first on-scene activity. So, precautions are taken for transit and conditional evidence during the survey. All forensic photography must consider three elements at the crime scene. And the first one is the subject, scale, and the reference object. Also, the overall forensic photograph must be shown